Hi everyone, my name is Pai. I'm the CIO of SCB 10X, and today I'm excited to be here with Mark, head of startups of OpenAI. Hi, Mark.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's kick off. Mark, you have an incredible journey from leading AWS startup programs to now shaping OpenAI startup ecosystem. Could you walk us through that part and what's your main mission at OpenAI today?
Sure. Yeah, so I lead our startups work here at OpenAI. Our mission is really just to help startups build and scale using our technology and platform. So our day-to-day is working with AI startups who are incorporating our models, our APIs directly into their products and building on top of it. We're a global team, so we support companies all around the world. And yeah, it's some of the most exciting work I've ever done. So it's been fun to be here.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard a lot from like startups, and then I understand that your team acts as OpenAI's listening device for startups, like gathering insights that feed into the product roadmap. From what you have seen, how do successful startups think about AI use case differently compared to big enterprise?
So I think that the types of startups that we work with, one of the key differentiators is they're very expert in how the models actually work and what they're good at, what the models, how they're evolving, and they're really very AI forward in that regard. So where that has an impact is when a startup is trying to build on top of our models and others, understanding really the capabilities and how to insert the model into a complex workflow, and sort of design with it as a key part of the architecture of a product is really, really important. So we talk a lot about evals and evaluations, and that's a core part of building on top of AI models is because these models they're non-deterministic and they have capabilities and personality and things that are unique. Each model has a little bit different capabilities. The way to work with them is like build evaluations into your product when you're using a model. Let's say you're doing a workflow that involves a legal reasoning step or a document processing step. The best startups create evals to say, how is this model and my usage of the model performing against these 15 evaluations that we have on different tasks in the product. That is a really, really important part of building. And the best startups are really good at setting up those evals, assessing new models against them, trying to understand which model to use for which use case, and then designing their product to have the models in the right places in the product. And I think that's um, things that we just see the best startups tend to have this really intuitive sense and diligence in how they work with the models. I think startups compared to enterprises do have an advantage that they're largely building a new product from scratch, so they don't have to bolt on AI to an existing platform that they've already built for some other purpose. They can reinvent the entire category, or the entire product from scratch using AI. So that's a really big advantage, and I think what we see is the best startups. They're knowledgeable about how the models work, but they're also excited when the models get better and better because it means that their product is actually likely to get better and better. So for an early stage startup that's trying to find product market fit, a new model release may actually improve the core product metrics for them. So it might drive better engagement or better retention, or we saw when GPT-5 launched, some startups said the conversion of their free tier users to paid users actually went up just by incorporating this new model that had stronger capabilities on some of their tasks. So that's maybe in a nutshell like what we see as some of the differentiation.
I see. Yeah, so mostly around like understanding of model and then putting the right evals in place, and then they also have more freedom because they don't kind of stick with the old legacy system or anything like that, like enterprise, right? For the enterprise side, I think you have mentioned that some executives jump too quickly into building something with AI and end up with low impact features sometimes. What is your framework for helping startups identify truly high value use cases?
Yeah, so with startups, a lot of them are just building their entire product uh, using LLM. So they don't even think about different use cases in the same way an enterprise is trying to say, hey, where can AI reinvent parts of my business? For many of these startups, it is the whole business, and that's pretty differentiated. With enterprises, I think when ChatGPT launched and the world woke up to the power of LLMs, a lot of enterprises recognized that things were going to change and they needed to change. But we saw like a lot of the first products that enterprises tried to build were like chatbots of different forms, and it might be a chatbot on your FAQs on your website, or a chat interface as part of your core product. And some of those worked. A lot of them didn't deliver as much value as enterprises had hoped. And I think uh, what we're seeing now is companies start to focus more of their enterprise across like two different dimensions. One is internal productivity. So let's make sure AI tools are in the hands of all the people at your company so that they can individually find the use cases in their day-to-day work that they can lean on AI to be more productive, or to be a thought partner, or to be analysis partner, or a research partner in the work. That's like table stakes now, and I think every enterprise is trying to adopt tools like ChatGPT into their business to do that. The second is external use cases, and where maybe they started with chatbots, we're seeing more enterprises that actually think about how can I build AI more core into my product and have customer-facing features that are powered by AI, as well as maybe things that are in the pipeline of data processing that they might do as parts of their how they deliver their service. So we're seeing that internal and external use cases emerge. The thing I'm very excited about is we're also seeing a lot of enterprises just adopt the startups technology. So we work with many startups building solutions for enterprise across different domains, different verticals, from go-to-market to legal to healthcare, different forms of research and analysis. And I think many enterprises in the early days, I've been with OpenAI 2 years now. When I joined, I think many large enterprises thought that they would build solutions directly on top of OpenAI's models, and some did very successfully. But a lot of them are realizing that they don't want to build software that's not core to their business, and they're adopting startup technology that's built for enterprise and solving different parts of their the pain points that they have, whether it's bringing a customer support solution into their business, or adopting a contract processing solution to have their legal teams operate more effectively, or there's a lot of startups trying to automate threat detection and cybersecurity, and so there's use cases there. I think that's been really exciting, and we've been trying to help our enterprise customers understand what are the best technologies right now that are emerging that might be useful to them, that they don't have to build, they can just buy and go use. So uh, those are some thoughts, but I think it's been an interesting moment as we transition out of just pure chatbots to, okay, what are the other places where you actually can rebuild or reinvent the business using AI?
I see. Since you touch on the like use case among enterprise, like both internal and external, like I think when we look at enterprise use case studies, show most organization are starting with internal AI use case before going customer facing. Um, but startup kind of have more freedom and can jump to customer facing. How do startup innovation patterns inform the timing and pace of AI adoption across large organizations?
So I think with enterprises, I think like the internal use cases, there generally is some really big low-hanging fruit there. So, for example, engineering teams using AI products like Codex or Cursor or Windsurf, um, there's just immediate productivity gains that they can see by adopting and learning and using these technologies, that product and engineering teams can get value out of from day one. So. And then similarly, I think customer support is another category where we have seen a lot of enterprises able to bring AI in, usually a startup solution, or in some cases building their own, but try to automate parts of their customer-facing support experience, which is great. Like that, those are really good use cases. I think what we see with startups is a lot of the innovation is kind of brand new experiences that just weren't possible in any prior form, and AI is making those possible. So, for example, AI is really good at processing documents and text and natural language, and so there's a lot of use cases in legal document processing, in writing, in analyzing and classifying kind of larger corpuses of text, doing legal and tax analysis, et cetera, that startups are building really purpose-built solutions on top of AI. And so I think in terms of how enterprises adopt those technologies, again, it kind of comes back to the prior question where we do see part of our role as a team is helping enterprises navigate not just the best of what OpenAI provides directly with our own products, but can we help them understand what are the best startup technologies being built in AI right now that might be a really good fit for an enterprise trying to solve their own problems. And that's been a fun part of the experience because we're getting to connect the dots across the work that I do and my team does with startups, with the enterprises that are coming to us saying, "Hey, OpenAI, you all are a leader in this space. Help us rethink, parts of our business. What are you seeing that's working?" And we have some theses on where we want to make changes in our business, but like, what are you seeing, and what can you bring to us to help us understand better?
Oh, that's interesting. So there will be some case that you feel like startup solutions may be a good fit for enterprise as well. Um, is
Definitely.
that right? Right. And then Mark, with OpenAI now processing like 8 billions of tokens every minute across 4 million developers, you are seeing a massive variety of implementations. What's the biggest difference between startups that build AI as their core product versus those that just add AI features on top?
So the biggest difference is that for startups where AI is core to their product, what it means is, especially at the early stage, as they try to get toward product market fit, the models are really directly tied to whether they can achieve product market fit and how strong the product performs. So when models improve, they can have really direct impact on how the product works and what the startup can accomplish. So one of the things that's been very consistent with this wave of startups over the last few years is that the best founders are really fast to adapt. We've all seen how fast OpenAI is releasing new model capabilities, and some of our peers doing the same. It's, every several weeks there's something brand new coming out, and the capabilities are getting better and better, faster and faster. You think back to when the reasoning models first came out, it was a really big step change. And I think startups were really good at saying, okay, there's this new capability. How can I incorporate that into my product? Understand the shape of the technology, the personality of the models, the strengths that it has, and then the fastest ones to adopt those new technologies have an advantage in how their product performs versus others. So that tying of the model capabilities to the actual product metrics, product market fit is really unique in this age. And we love working with startups for this reason because they also give us fantastic feedback. And I think one of the best ways that we engage with startups is really learning from them. So we build models. Our research team is fantastic, and they're continually pushing the state of the art, pushing the bleeding edge. But it's not until startups actually go and deploy these models into their products that we learn the most about all of the edges and capabilities of the models. In some cases, we're surprised, but actually we didn't know that the model was as strong on certain tasks as it comes out. In other cases, the startups say, "Hey, it's not good enough on this dimension," and like here's some examples of where the prompt and what came out back from the model was not what we wanted. And that helps us learn as an org. And we've been developing this really tight feedback loop between our startup customers, my team, our solutions team, and then our research team, who ends up, taking the startup feedback, turning that into, new areas that they want to go train the models on, and then we'll put out a new snapshot and try to meet the objectives of the end customer. So increasingly, like our work as a company is really trying to work backward from the startup needs, the startup feedback, and build models that actually work really, really well in the customer's product. It's almost not enough to just have a high score on some of the public benchmarks that you see anytime a new model is released. We publish, how does it do on Bench Verified, and how does it do on these other evals that are public benchmarks. Those are really helpful, and we use them to guide the research. But increasingly, we're trying to focus on the largest customers and startup use cases that we don't serve well. Can we make the models much, much better so that when we release the next version of GPT-5, for example, it actually makes everyone's products better. Like when the startups can move faster and grow faster. That is like a really powerful thing that as a team we're trying to do better and better.
Interesting that you also learn. I think you learn faster from the feedback from startup because they actually try to implement with the model with the real use case or verticals. Yeah, that's interesting. Mark, I would like to understand more about Converge, OpenAI startup program. As part of the program, I understand you provide investment, mentorship, and early access to models. When you're deciding which startups to back, what do you look for, and what are the key criteria, and how do you spot the ones doing something truly exceptional?
Sure. So Converge is a program run by the OpenAI Startup Fund. So it's a fund. They make investments in AI startups of different kinds. Converge was their program. They've run two cohorts of the program so far, and mainly what they're looking for is like highly technical founders who are solving a critical or interesting problem in AI, and that's like broadly what their focus is. I think as a team, my team is very much focused on like we support startups across many different domains and across really all stages and with a global focus. So anywhere in the world. What we look for when we work with startups is a company really building with LLMs in the core of their product, and is there a way that our team could actually help accelerate what they're building with thoughtful advice? I think our teams are really expert in how OpenAI models work, and we can give really thoughtful advice on from everything that we've seen working with enterprises, startups, and other companies, like what are the best design patterns to use the models for different parts of a product. And those things can make a really big difference. I mean, we saw as an example, GPT-5, when it released, was a new model. It had different best practices for how you prompt it. It's a very steerable model, so you can generally um, prompt the model to behave differently in different scenarios, and it responds really, really well. But there were best practices for how to prompt that model that were different than GPT 4.1, different than models built by other labs. And a lot of the work that we do with startups is say, hey, can our team actually really help you come up to speed faster when these new capabilities emerge and get the most performance out of the models? Improve the performance against your evals, make the models as fast as they can be in your product, and improve things like caching, and that means that latency can come down. And our team, that is a big part of our role, is helping startups extract the most performance out of our models and also see what's coming. So when we work with startups, we try to share where we're making investments, what capabilities we're trying to build. We want to get feedback from startups to inform our product roadmap and inform the research roadmap. But we also like to give a preview so you can have a sense of what's coming and where we're hoping to build new features in our API or build new capabilities into the models, which is helpful for these startups that operate at the bleeding edge of performance. They want to know where they should be focusing their time, and where they might say, okay, I'll just wait 3 months and OpenAI might release the thing that I'm most needing versus okay, we actually have to go engineer something special because that's not on the roadmap today. And so those are the ways that we work with startups. But my team engages with founders across all stages, and it's really exciting. We think startups are the most sophisticated users of our APIs. They always give us the best feedback, and we're really trying to design our organization to really work backward from what the startup needs are, so that many startups can scale on top of these models.
I see. It sounds like you may prioritize the startups with high technical team that with the model is being like center of the product or solutions. Is that something that's correct?
That's right.
Right. Then Mark, I think on this, like I think that it's actually the questions on startups' mind? Like, because OpenAI is innovating at such a fast pace that sometimes it might overlap with what startups are building. How do you balance supporting startups to programs like Converge while ensuring OpenAI's roadmap doesn't compete with them?
Sure. So my team's role is to help startups be successful using OpenAI's platform, full stop. And we work with many startups already who, have built products that could be seen as competitive with ChatGPT or Codex. And, we work with them exactly the same as we would work with any other startup. Like our goal is help them be successful and really work backward from what they need. So that's a super deep commitment from OpenAI. And from leadership on down, that is a shared commitment. When we work with founders, though, we do try to share some of our product investment areas. So, we want them to know where we're trying to build and what we're focused on, so that they have a sense of what's coming. And that's a way we try to be really transparent and helpful with startups, so they can have a sense of where we're headed. We also think like many of these markets are really, really large, and there's going to be multiple successful products built across many different companies in some of these bigger categories. So even where there is, some competitive dynamic, we think there's lots and lots of room for startups to run. So that's generally how we think about it.
I see. And Mark, you've emphasized the importance of not shoehorning AI into product without a clear business goal. Can you share examples from OpenAI startup portfolio, maybe one that nailed the strategy and one that didn't quite get it right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that have gotten this right. I could probably pick many examples, but maybe Harvey and Legora are good. So these are both legal AI companies that are using LLMs to power like a solution for lawyers to use in their day to day. And they can handle many different workflows, but the core thing that LLMs are really good at is actually like reasoning over text, handling natural language, and unstructured data. In law, there's lots of unstructured data in the form of legal documents, and there's lots of process that required human labor in the past that now you can actually apply an LLM to it, and do it really, really effectively. So like legal research is a really good example. Case citation, drafting and contracting different legal documents. And so these companies have like really built fantastic purpose-built solutions that take what the models are best at or really good at and apply it in a place where there's very labor-intensive work, very expensive human labor being spent on these documents, and it allows the lawyer to be able to move much faster, have less of the grunt work, more focus on the really hard strategic problems with their clients and in their work. And like I feel like it's a great example of where the models work really, really well for startups. Um, getting it wrong, I think maybe not a specific startup example, but one thing I think a lot about is these models are really powerful, but how you use them matters as much as, what they're good and not good at. And for example, let's say in like my own work at OpenAI. So right now we're in like a planning uh, mode right now. We're doing some strategic planning. I think a bad use of a model in this process is to say, open up ChatGPT and say, please draft me a startup team strategy for 2026. The reason why that's a bad prompt is like, I'm just not giving enough context to the model to actually do something intelligent. And it will respond, it will produce something that is, pretty good. It'll probably be like a thoughtful strategy in terms of the structure, and the language will be really, really good. But it will be missing a lot of the context of our business. Like what are our key customers? What areas have we been stronger on and weaker on? What are the key big bets that we have been talking about in Slack and in meetings over the last several weeks? What is our team uh, size in terms of headcount, where we focus. So there's like all these things that if you were actually writing this strategy doc, you would want that context at the core of what you're thinking about when you're writing. And so I think we see that sometimes happen with startups, sometimes happen with enterprises, where like a smarter use of the LLM in this process might be to say, okay, I have a bunch of data. Here's some analysis I would like to do. with this purpose in mind. Can you like go run through this analysis? Or I've written a couple paragraphs of ideas we have for next year. Can you give me really critical feedback on like what's missing or where there's weaknesses in the argument? Can you help me come up with two more ideas in this list of five that I have that might be additive to what we might go do next year? And so there's ways to bring AI into this process that are really leaning into what it's good at. But one failure mode is like if you're not doing the context engineering, which is what the term is these days, you're not bringing the right information to the model to allow it to use its intelligence, then you're going to have a pretty poor kind of outcome. And so I think there's versions of this in startup products and enterprise products, but I see it every day in terms of how people just use ChatGPT, where um, the folks who get the most value out of it have a really good sense of how to bring the models into the work in a way that is additive and like leans into the strengths.
I see. So sounds like context is the key. Just need to give enough context and maybe like more targeted prompt. Mark, I think many enterprises are now struggling with the transition from AI pilots to production. From your startup experience, what is the most critical factor that determines whether an AI implementation scales successfully?
Yeah, I think the key things are like, are you solving a core problem? Like, are you focused on the right problem is usually step one. And is it high value? Are the models a good fit for the use case? So similar to the last question, like, are you bringing the models in the right way? And then, maybe third is like, do you have really good evals to even know if you're doing well? This is a failure mode we sometimes see with startups where in the early days, you're putting an LLM together, you get a demo, or you're putting a product together with an LLM, you have a demo that's working pretty well, but there's a big gap between demo and production ready product that requires a lot of engineering work, and it's having really strong evals that you craft and understanding, do you have good coverage across all the different tasks you're trying to have the model do with evals? Have you built guardrails if it's a consumer facing application, the proper guardrails on how the model's used so that it's staying within the constraints you want to see in the product? Are you introducing the right context engineering to make sure the model has access to the best right context in the moment to produce outputs that you want, et cetera? And like, I think those are the things that have to really be done well. If you talk to any founder, this is where the magic is where the magic happens is anyone can kind of, especially with vibe coding tools today, anyone can create a product that has an LLM in it that does something interesting and it demos well. It is very hard to create an enterprise-ready, production-ready, scalable application using LLMs. It's very, many startups do it successfully, but it takes a lot of work, and that's where I think the expertise comes into play. It's also a place where my team can be very helpful because we do help startups overcome some of these challenges to say, okay, I'm getting 72% score on my evals. I really need this to be 99 plus in order to be able to put this into production with my customer. What are all the levers I have to try to improve in that dimension? And we can introduce some solution ideas that we have that have worked well with other customers and that we think are best practices to help startups come up that curve or enterprises come up that curve.
I see. Mark, I think our time is up, and then maybe like good for one last question. So, looking ahead, what's your message to both startup founders and enterprise leaders in the audience? How can they engage with OpenAI startup ecosystem or apply your framework in their own organizations?
Sure. I mean, first, I think it's just an incredible time to be building a startup or to be building with AI right now. So uh, it's really phenomenal and it could not be more fun. So for the startups out there, I think now's a fantastic time to be building. I think for folks who want to join our community and follow along, you can join our newsletter and find out about upcoming events and learn some best practices at our website. So it's openai.com/startups. And we love to engage one-on-one as well. But that's the great place to get started. You'll be in the loop on some of the new releases we have coming out. You can also we host roughly monthly technical deep dive talks that are virtual that anyone can join. And so I would encourage folks to join and hope to engage with you soon.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for your insights into startup framework. And then I think that's also beneficial to enterprise in the audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.